Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. How are you all coping with the snow out there? Any of you used it as an excuse not to go in the office today? Or do you listen to this show on the other side of the world in a nice warm climate, just taking it easy, drinking a cocktail by the pool? Either way, I'd love to hear from you. But over here in the UK, the snow has once again grounded our traditional infrastructure to a halt. And as a tech guy, I've often thought, surely technology can actually help protect this traditional infrastructure during adverse weather conditions and create different and new solutions to cope with infrastructure projects of tomorrow. Now, this is a moment where I came across a company called Pavia Systems. Now, they provide a much needed technology solution to infrastructure projects right across the US, and they work with both departments of transportation and private companies. But what is particularly interesting about Pavia is that they were originally founded to solve the problem of discoverability across infra projects, i.e. to stop that pen and paper approach, which incredibly still exists today. However, in the process of solving that problem, they created a new one, massive amounts of data. And I think that's something that all businesses can relate to at the moment. Now, as a consequence of this vast amount of data, they needed to pivot and evolve along the way. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to ask George White, the CEO and co-founder, on the show today to speak about some of the most interesting innovation in traditional infrastructure. So buckle up, hold on tight, so I can beam your ears all the way to Seattle, so we can speak with George White from Pavia Systems. So a massive warm welcome to the show, George. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me here today. Pavia Systems, we're an infrastructure technology company. Our mission is really to provide products that capture and catalog information that's used to help our customers deliver safe, reliable, and efficient roads, bridges, rail, you name it, that connects people really to the public. And for us, what's really important about all of this is our purpose. You know, infrastructure, it's the glue that connects our society and powers our daily lives. It enables us to get where we need to go, yet surprisingly, the bulk of how infrastructure is built and managed to this day is disconnected. It relies on pen and paper for recording and file cabinets for storage. So at Pavia, through our project intelligence platform called Headlight, our vision is to make all aspects of this infrastructure observable and facilitate the management of each of the processes used to deliver the infrastructure available. And so making this information, data, updates easily accessible through the cloud to stakeholders anywhere, anytime, so that we can ultimately reduce the risk of producing, a costly, unsafe, or unreliable outcome due to lack of information.
Like you were saying now, I think it's my understanding as well that you guys provide much needed technology solutions to those infrastructure projects right across the US. And you also work with both the departments of transportation and private companies too. But for anyone listening on their commute to the office this morning, can you just help them visualize what kind of problems you solve with Pavia and also how you help businesses?
You bet. And for those of your listeners that are actually in the car right now, there's a good chance either on their commute today or at one point, in the recent past, that they've passed a road construction project that has impacted the way that they got to their destination. And, with that, it may or may not surprise you and your listeners to know that, groups like McKinsey, they estimate these projects, it's very common to have challenges, and over 20% of them take longer than expected, and almost 80% of these are over budget. And really a key reason for this is the lack of information flow. Headlight provides really a new level of visibility to these activities in the field by using a mobile and cloud solution to allow decision makers the ability to reduce any potential time, quality, or safety impacts that can come from issues. And probably the best way is a specific example. And, recently we had a customer that was responsible for reconstructing a new highway segment that had identified what's called a soft spot in the underlying road. And before headlight, this would typically result in a delay of several days. So for those listeners, more frustration because that road project is taking longer than expected. And that delay was there because all the parties have to physically get together, review the issues, and really determine a path forward. And with headlight, on this particular project, our customer was able to immediately document the issue simply using a mobile device, and then communicate that with stakeholders through our platform to resolve the issue within hours. So it ended up resulting in no time delay for delivery of the project. And probably more importantly to note is ultimately it saved taxpayers a ton of money because, it prevents that sort of pre-existing defect from ending up in the final product, which ultimately would reduce the longevity of the road.
And what is particularly interesting for Pavia, especially from my point of view, is that you were originally founded to solve the problem of discoverability, because infra projects, i.e. to stop the pen and paper approach that has been holding us back for so long. I mean, can you tell me a little more about that inspiration behind originally founding Pavia?
You bet. It's probably something we're all very familiar with, and I guess you could say it started all with a pothole. Prior to founding Pavia, I was asked to do some research and help a consortium of several departments of transportation to figure out, hey, why are potholes forming and what can we do to prevent them in the future? So we set out to gather all kinds of data from these organizations to identify the commonality of what was causing these issues. And literally the first thing we discovered was all the information that was being used to help us answer this question was locked in file cabinets and recorded on pen and paper. So you can imagine us trying to solve this problem with information in all different shapes and forms. And it really didn't take us long to realize that we've got an industry here that's responsible for an enormous amount of value to our society and just how much we invest that wasn't using technology to help it be efficient. And what we realized is if we were going to have an impact, we needed to have another modern digital way to observe all aspects of what was happening out there as we build and manage our road networks. And thus, Pavia was born.
And somewhere along the way, while solving this problem, you then unwittingly created a new one, massive amounts of data. So can you tell me how, as a consequence of this vast amount of data, you encountered exciting innovation in infrastructures such as driverless cars and the requirements that they will have, and drones in project assessment, and also making our highways and byways more sustainable, and actually reducing the impact on our environment?
I think about it, our roads and bridges provide the foundation for the auto industry. And like any foundation, if there are cracks or gaps, the buildings that rely on them will be damaged or destroyed. And the same is true for infrastructure and vehicles, and in how the infrastructure, it really has to be in good standing for things like autonomous vehicles to perform properly. So for example, when you have a significant technological advance in the automotive industry, like we're seeing today with the advent of driverless cars, you really want to see a corresponding advance in the infrastructure that it relies upon. So for example, let's rewind quite a bit in time. And if we look back when we just had, the horse or the horse and buggy to, connect between our different communities, our roads were really, dirt pathways. But as we advanced in the advent of the car, it became apparent we needed new materials and a new foundation, things like asphalt and concrete, to provide that infrastructure connection. And so up until this point, we're seeing a massive amount of advancement in the technology used to transport on the roads, but we really haven't seen quite yet that same level of investment in our infrastructure. And so for us, as we work to make every aspect of infrastructure observable, we see a future where our infrastructure itself becomes more intelligent, and that the information that we're capturing and cataloging becomes information that's then available to operators and those that are tasked with maintaining it or those that are traveling on it. So a good example, here even recently is, you can think after a natural disaster, one of the first things that a transportation organization does is work to assess the condition of its network as quickly as possible to determine, if we have an earthquake or a hurricane, what are my safe routes of passage that I can put the traveling public on? What are my safe routes of passage that I can get goods and services to those people? And for us with Headlight, combined with some of the newer technologies that we integrate with, like drones, we can start to intelligently and efficiently capture this information, catalog it so that those same decision makers aren't waiting days to open different networks to their constituency. We can make those things happen in minutes.
Now, you did mention the Headlight platform a few moments ago. So can you tell me more about how that's actually helping clients accelerate delivery, reduce risk, and increase accountability of construction projects, all by streamlining and mobilizing project inspections, communications, and also documentation?
Yes. So probably the best way is through a couple of examples. So when all aspects of infrastructure projects are captured in the cloud using modern technology and mobile devices, there's really no hunting down the documents in terms of ownership, inspections, composition. So it really streamlines that communications. So one example is, before Headlight, it really used to require both project engineers and inspectors countless hours of travel to physically travel between the job site that they were responsible for and the office to actually document the processes, whether it was for payment or quality verification, to ensure that they got what they had paid for. Now with Headlight, those same inspectors are able to capture and catalog all of that data in real time using a mobile device and make that immediately accessible back to those project engineers via the cloud. So no longer do the inspectors have to travel back to the office to fill out paperwork, and no longer do the project engineers need to wait days and then sometimes a week before discovering that something on the ground may be amiss and may require, something to be rebuilt. So that's one area in terms of communication that dramatically changes how we build things. And then another area where we see is with regards to the information as it's being amassed on these big projects is this area of reducing risk and claims reduction. So, for example, we had one customer that had a significant claim filed against their project for damage to private property. So typically what happens in these cases is the project owner will spend countless hours and in some cases days sifting through file boxes trying to find the proverbial needle in a haystack, trying to find that one document that helps describe or prove their case. And with Headlight, because we are intelligently capturing and cataloging the location, who took the information, where it is, what parts of the project it's attributed to, that same customer was able to simply indicate the location of where this claim had come in and where the damage was proposed to have occurred and retrieve all the data within 100 yards of that issue. And from that, they've taken this haystack and they've gotten it right down to the needle very quickly. And they were able to identify literally images showing that this damage was a pre-existing issue. And, they estimated it saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, both in time and money. And really just a small example of the power of Headlight once you are capturing and cataloging the information in this way.
So I think it's fair to say that technology is at the heart of everything you do, but also in many ways that people wouldn't necessarily associate with Pavia Systems. So do you think we're entering a very exciting era of technology where it's at the heart of how we actually build that traditional infrastructure now?
I do. And, we're seeing more and more technology companies, even like Google, enter the game of infrastructure, with introducing things like driverless cars, which really completely changed the way we get from place to place. That said, without changing the way we manage traditional infrastructure, innovations like that, autonomous cars, can't be introduced into the mainstream society without some risk. So I think about this. I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I don't think she's going to have a need for a driver's license. With that being said, my biggest concern is more that we ensure that these autonomous vehicles have a safe and reliable platform to operate on, so that as she's getting from place to place in the future, I can have the assurance that it's going to be on a safe and consistent platform that these technologies can then take advantage of.
That's a great point you made there. Do you really think that your 6-year-old daughter possibly won't need a driver's license in the traditional sense, and that will be widespread technology used by the time she's ready to drive?
Absolutely. I truly do. It's, for us here in the Washington, we're looking at, 10 years, and I believe those technologies are there, and, she's going to really, how we connect and transport and move people is really in what I would call a large phase of disruption. And it's going to be, for me, it's exciting to watch how this all is unfolding. And, I know she's going to have a new experience, but again, where we see ourselves and where we fit is really ensuring that those platforms, those roads, those bridges are reliable and stable for these different technologies to take advantage of.
So looking into the future, I'm going to ask you to look in your crystal ball here a little, but how else do you see technology transforming this space that you're in?
Well, first, I do want to note, and I think it's worth noting that, infrastructure as an industry is really one of the largest industries and is one of the largest opportunities to digitize of any on the planet. It's, we've got over $5 trillion that's spent annually across the globe on infrastructure alone, presenting an enormous opportunity for, investment and technology to help deliver that more efficiently. And, as I'm looking at those investments and those technologies that are now coming to market, one area I'm particularly excited about are some of the remote sensing and what we call high volume data capturing devices, some things like drones or LiDAR that are being used to really more effectively automate the documentation and assessment of conditions in real time so that we can, work to prevent issues rather than respond to them. And so those are the kind of technologies that we are closely partnering and looking at. How do we take these massive amounts of information that are being now generated, in some cases in automated fashion, and interpret them intelligently so that you and I and the stakeholders responsible for their care can make the best decisions possible, to provide, again, really that safe and reliable outcome we want.
So what's next for Pavia Systems? I mean, what's going to be your big focus for 2018 in your immediate future?
Well, for us right now, the focus this coming year is really on expanding our network of customers and partners to broaden our impact. We're aligning ourselves with those new technologies we were just talking about to ensure we can incorporate those in. And one of the things that I think is really exciting is beyond the enormous demand that we see on infrastructure, we're seeing an increasing appetite, even politically and socially, for those infrastructure investments. So really for us, we see a big year ahead, in particular in ensuring we position ourselves so that we can help our customers make every aspect of that infrastructure observable so that they can deliver the best infrastructure they can.
Fantastic. So before I let you go, can I just ask that you remind the listeners of where they can find out more information about yourself and also all the things that we've talked about today and Pavia Systems, and also how anyone listening can contact a member of your team if they've got any questions about our conversation?
Absolutely. And again, thank you for your time today and the opportunity to talk about what we're up to. The best place to learn more about our company, Headlight, or myself is really through our website, which is at www.paviasystems.com. That's spelled PAVIASYSTEMS.com.
Fantastic. Well, one of the things I love doing about this show is every episode is about how technology is transforming multiple industries and honing in on each of those stories. But one story that we don't hear often enough is how technology is actually transforming the traditional infrastructure. And that's something that you've done today very eloquently. So I applaud you for coming on and taking that time to tell your story. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'm excited for our future. So it's a society, and how we connect physically is critically important. So it's important that we have this great connections.
Innovation in infrastructure is something that I don't often think about, but conversations like this really open up my eyes around the opportunities that surround driverless cars and the requirements that they will have, drones in project assessments, and also making our highways and byways sustainable. And possibly most importantly of all, reducing the impact on our environment. And for those reasons, I really enjoyed our conversation today with George, and I hope that you did too. And did it spark any big ideas or concepts in you? If it did, don't just sit there and let that idea or valuable insight float off into the ether. Share it with yours truly and our audience today via a quick tweet at Neil C. Hughes, or as always, email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. But all this talk of technology has reminded me to write a letter to Santa now to see if it's not too late to ask for a drone this Christmas. So while I go off and do that, I will bid you a seasonal farewell and promise to speak with you all again tomorrow. So a genuine thank you for tuning in each day, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.